This is episode number 2 with Pat Divilly. Welcome to the Grow Podcast with myself, David O'Connor, where my goal is to interview world-class guests so you can constantly progress as a person in terms of your training, your mindset and nutrition. So without further ado, let's dive in. How are we keeping, guys? And a big welcome back to episode number 2 of the Grow Podcast. And today I have Mr. Pat Divilly on with me, and Pat is a good friend of mine from here in Galway as well, who is a 3 times best-selling author. He's a speaker and a transformation coach, which he's more recently moved into, because he started out here 4 years ago in Barna, and he grew from having 5 clients locally to over 15,000 online through his training courses. With that as well, he's raised over $250,000 for local charities here in Ireland and is now building a school out in Nepal as well. Hope I've pronounced that right. But more recently, Pat has moved into the personal development space, offering seminars, retreats, and if you follow him, you've probably seen him doing different adventure trips around the world as well for clients basically seeking life on their own terms. And with these seminars as well, it's all about finding more clarity in yourself, more confidence in yourself, and just a bit more connection with yourself as well. And today, that is why I wanted to get Pat on to talk all things shop with that. Like where to get started with your mindset, how most people are climbing the wrong mountain and what to do about that, how beliefs might stand in your way and how to kind of break through them, because you wouldn't believe the amount of stuff that actually holds people back. Pat's goal setting process and how we kind of reverse engineers that. Process goals versus outcome goals and what that means to you. And then as well, Pat's daily 4 tasks that he does to make sure he moves forward, but all the while, what is his main emphasis these days as well to make sure he stays grounded and just stays enjoying the whole journey aspect of it too. Now, there's a lot more in there as well, so I think the best thing to do is just get straight into it, and I'm going to welcome Pat into the podcast. So Pat, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks a lot for having me.
And I suppose it's been a while coming. I think we've been touching base a lot of the time now to kind of get in touch and do some content together. We were planning to do videos, I think, August of last year, and the podcast wasn't in the mix then, but we're finally here. I want people, Pat, though, that may not know you fully like I do or like that, to give them just a quick viewpoint on how did you get to where you are now? Like, who is Pat Divilly and where he is right now?
Yeah, I suppose ultimately I started off in fitness early. I was in my teens when I started doing martial arts and weight training and kind of fell in love with the gym and decided that was what I wanted to do. So after school, became a personal trainer, did a master's in nutrition, got into the commercial gym setup, and I suppose struggled working in commercial gyms. It wasn't my thing. I didn't enjoy working for someone. I'm not very employable. I went out on my own. I struggled with my first business, just not knowing what I was doing and living in Dublin where I didn't know anyone and the market was kind of flooded, and I found it hard to get a start in business being young, I suppose. And looking back, I think I expect things to come easier than they do come. You obviously got to put in the work. So I came back home to Galway, restarted with a new business, which was kind of fitness boot camps in Barna here. And they just grew very quickly from 5 clients up to couple of hundred in the first year, opened a gym, put my courses online, and that's most of what I do now in terms of fitness is my online training courses, which have had 15,000 people go through them. I've written a couple of books, and the thing I'm most passionate about, I suppose, is mindset and soul set, so kind of just going after what you want in life. And I've learned over time that first I was teaching people that through fitness, but now it's in different spectrums, so retreats and seminars, and I try to just do it through the way I teach things, but also the way I live. I travel a lot. I go after anything I want, and I don't really see limitations. So that's kind of me.
Brilliant. And because even back when you did have the gym open up in Barna, like, I don't know if you even remember this, or not many people know it, but you were a big kick up the ass for me to go after what I wanted to do as well. And I think, you had that effect on me at the start, and you probably didn't even know you were affecting people in that way either. Like, so,
Thank you.
No, like it's mad when I think back. Sometimes I even forget it, like kind of where the initial drive kind of came from me to open up Doc Fitness. And I know I was young and I didn't really have much commitments back then, but it was a big player for me to get out there and set it up and get going. And we're sitting here now chatting about it. Like,
thank you. I think it's important that people know kind of that when they go after things themselves, effectively they're giving other people a permission slip to do the same. because what we see in other people is often a mirror. So when you see someone going after things, it inspires you. And we put people on pedestals sometimes, but really it's just to kick up the arse that, you know, we can do the same. So thank you.
No, definitely. No, and the one thing, Pat, that I want to get into the habit of asking everybody as well, to fast forward into right now, is if you only had 10 seconds to explain what you do, what would you say?
I think I inspire belief, or instill belief in people, belief in belonging. So make people feel a part of something and make them believe they can do more than they think possible.
Brilliant. Sweet. Okay, so I want to start off like, kind of like if we talked about training stuff, nutritional stuff, we'll start from the foundations up and go from there. And I think it's no different when it comes to mindset stuff. I call it mindset stuff. You might have a different overall term for it, but I think, you know, you have brackets like you have mindset, you have thoughts that come into your head daily, you have certain beliefs that might be holding you back. Then obviously I think then goal setting comes after that, because if the other thing, like if the thoughts are not proper in your head, if the beliefs are all over the place, if you don't have, we'll say, an abundance types mindset, that there's no point, like the goal setting stuff that you do is never going to come to fruition if there's other like barriers in the way, if you like. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on, Pat, like where do you even start with, we'll say, instilling belief into someone? And like would you coin the term mindset? Would you coin a belief? Where do you start with this stuff?
Obviously there's a lot going on and there's a lot of layers to it, but I'm between mindset, soul set, gut. There's lots of different things happening, and I've kind of leaned a little bit more towards the gut or the soul set in recent months, and I'll kind of go into that as we talk. But one of the things I do see that happens, I suppose, because mindset or personal development, this stuff is becoming more accepted and is becoming more mainstream. One of the issues is, I think, that sometimes people are climbing the wrong mountain. So even with my own seminars, I see it looking back now that I used to have my one day workshop used to be about setting 10 goals in the day and working toward them, which is great for most people. But then a lot of people will also set goals for the sake of setting goals and be doing it because the person next to them is doing it, and, you know, no more than training or anything else. They're climbing the wrong mountain, so they're going after something that doesn't mean as much to them. And what happens then is they climb the mountain, they get to the top, and they say, geez, I'm on the wrong thing here. I don't feel fulfilled. And it's nearly worse than not setting a goal in the first place. So like you say, I think it comes back to, you know, before you're setting the goals and everything else, it comes back to what are your beliefs. And I think self-awareness is an important thing. So how well do you know yourself? Yeah. How well do you know where you've come from, where you are, and where you want to go? And that's what I'm big on now, is kind of slowing down, taking time for yourself. It's great to learn and to read and to, you know, study courses. We both obviously have gone through a lot of courses and we continue to do so. Yeah. But one thing people forget about is it's important to get to know yourself and to slow it down a little bit and to learn to trust yourself. So that's been my biggest kind of learning, I suppose, in recent months.
Yeah, I think self-awareness is probably another term you could put mindset under as well or whatever, but it's, even what you mentioned there, climbing the wrong mountain, which is a brilliant analogy, I think as well, some people are setting goals, but they don't even believe in the back of their head that they can get to a certain, like when we kind of bring our members here at Doc Fitness through goal setting stuff, I always make it abundantly clear, like there might be like these mental barriers in place that need to be broken down in order for you to believe you can get to that goal or actually start making real progress towards it as well. So like once a year we do a thing at the start of the year where I call it the Mindset Breakthrough Workshop, and we're in a room for 2 or 3 hours and we go through a lot of like limiting belief stuff and just different perspectives to look at. And even though I might be only touching on a fraction of that, I do see the massive difference in people like the year after that it makes, and then the goal setting becomes a lot more consistent for them. But before I kind of go off on a tangent, I want to kind of go backtrack a bit and to give people a bit more of a buy-in, because I know there's going to be a few people listening to this that still probably think, why would I bother setting a goal? That's airy-fairy stuff. That's for all these personal development guys that, you know, that they're up in the trees or whatever. And I want people to realise the absolute massive, like, radical change that becomes over you when you actually believe you can do something, when you have this mindset where, you know, you see every deemable setback as a chance to move forward rather than falling victim to it. And just the difference that makes in your family, friends, relationship, personal training, nutrition, whatever you want to call it. Like, so Pat, I suppose what I'm asking really is, why should we bother to become more self-aware? Why should we bother to set goals? Why do we need to become more mindful?
I mean, ultimately, the thing that people forget is that you're your biggest asset and you're the most important person in the world. That, you could be dropped anywhere in the world and it could pick you up out of Ireland or wherever you are and put you on the other side of the world on your own. It's just going to be you. You come into this world on your own, you leave on your own, you go to bed at night looking in the mirror and get up in the morning looking in the mirror. I think the level to which you know yourself is the most important thing in the world. And the issue is that people are going a million miles an hour. They are taking on more and more and more because we live in this world where we think it's about having more and doing more and being more. We're living in other people's worlds where we're on social media all day being spectators. And, it leads to misery because people forget that I think confidence comes from clarity. So being clear on where you're trying to go. You look at anyone who's confident, they've got something they're working towards. They don't get their confidence from thin air. And, I think confidence also comes from learning to trust yourself. But the issue is that most of us, again, are looking outside of ourselves all the time. And when I look outside of myself for the answers to everything that's going on, so if I've got, struggles and I've got limiting beliefs and I've got all these things, the way to overcome those things is to slow down and to look at yourself and to examine yourself and study yourself and take time for yourself. The same way you would to cultivate any relationship. A relationship with yourself is going to take time. It's going to take observations. It's going to take working through things. But again, most of us look outside of ourselves for the answers. And what happens there is we're effectively telling ourselves, I don't know the answer, but someone else has the answer. Mm-hmm. So we're putting them on a pedestal. We're putting ourselves down. And again, the lack of clarity and the lack of kind of faith in ourselves is what's leading to a lack of confidence. So there's all these analogies, if you think of the law of attraction where you buy a new car or a new pair of shoes and you go into the city and it's everywhere. Same thing with goal setting. So if you've got an idea of where you're trying to go, suddenly your life starts to, now it doesn't fall into your lap, but opportunities start to pop up. We've got the reticular activating system in the brain, which is the part that deciphers what's important to us. Yeah. So, if I've got a goal of going to Egypt, then suddenly that's in my conscious or my subconscious. I'm going to walk through town, past the travel agents, and the picture of the trip to Egypt has always been there. But because I've set it as an intention, now it's showing up. So most people live in distraction. If we can start to live in intention and just consciously think, and for anyone who's skeptical, I'd just say, give it a go for 28 days. Pick something that you want to work towards and just see how it starts to show up. Yeah. And if you won't be a skeptic after that. It's free. Ideas are free and thoughts are free and everything else costs money. So most people spend their money, I think, on things that distract them. Why not, start to think about where you're actually trying to go?
No, that's brilliant, Pat, because... And I think I want to make the point too, this is not just this is for everything in your life. I'm obviously I use the analogy of getting goal setting stuff, mindset stuff across to our members in terms of making them believe that the guy that came first, who was a 45-year-old father of 3 and has slept no more than 5 hours in the last 5 years, might come first just to lose a bit of weight, lose the good as he calls it. But I want to instill the belief in him and make him see that down the line, if he wants to get a fucking six-pack or bigger arms or shoulders, he can do that. And there's just this barrier in front of him that makes him think, oh, I'm over the hill, I can't do that. Do you know what I mean? And that's a very, very easy way to kind of get this across. And when you apply that to, let's say, a body composition goal, a fitness goal, performance goal, it could be a job, business, income type thing. It could be anything. And I think as well, when people start to realize that, right, this is not just a thing for me or personal development of one aspect, it's for everything you do. And I think that's powerful when people know that, because as you said, confidence does come from clarity, and I think all you're trying to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, or all I'm trying to do is bring out that clarity in people as well. And I think would you say that's kind of the fundamental aspect of what you do, Pat, is it?
Yeah, it's a massive amount. It's just encouraging people to look at their own lives rather than looking at other people's lives. I just think it's a shame if we're going to spend the best part of our lives and the whole of our life looking at other people, having them on pedestals. I've learned that the reason we look up to people is because they're showing traits that we want to demonstrate ourselves. So our heroes aren't there to be, worshipped. They're there to kind of just be a shining light to us, encouraging us to shine our own light. You talk about fitness goals, and I think the reason fitness ties in so well with mindset and with other goal setting is that no one can do your fitness, no one can do your push-ups for you. Regardless of how much money you ever make, you have to do the work yourself. You have to go within. Yeah. You have to bring it out of yourself. And that goes for everything. And people learn that. You know what it's like from clients. They learn it through fitness, and then they go through their career and they start to realize that no one controls me. I control myself, and I control my own circumstances. I create my own opportunities. And that's a great lesson that, you know, for me with my clients, they learned it through fitness. They started leaving bad relationships, starting great relationships. They started improving relationships. They started improving their jobs, starting businesses, all this other stuff, which is solely as a result of learn from fitness that if I've got a goal of losing a stone and I do the work and I stay consistent and I do the work, it's going to happen. Yeah. And then they start to say, well, wow, how can I apply this in other areas? So that's where fitness is just like, there's no one successful out there who's not practicing fitness in some component. And it's just that idea that when you do the work, when you realize that it comes from you, not from anything external, then anything's possible.
I think we've made it clear on why this is so important. I hope, because even myself, like I still have a lot of friends that if I'd mentioned anything to do with what's your goal, or I don't even say that anymore. I might say what's your focus, because even to get people to buy into it at start, so what are you trying to focus on? What do you want to get from this? Just simple words to make them get over that first step, and then they believe themselves a bit more and they do more and more and more, because all you have to do, Pat, is look around. And I know some people have different mixed opinions of what I'm going to say next, but like, I'm not someone who sits down every day and reads the newspaper first thing in the morning and then listens to the radio in the car every single minute I'm in the car, and then listens to the news when I go home in the evening. Because when you look at that, like, it's just a constant stream of negative shit that you don't need, and then you're getting blocked from the number one person in your life, which is yourself. Like, where is that focus coming into you? You're listening to all the other things going on in the world, and while that's fine and it's okay to keep on top of what's going on, like, why do you need that? Like, so again, this is just kind of becoming, there should be a few aha moments going off in people's heads, like, geez, if I start to focus on myself a bit more, I might progress a bit more, and that's what it's all about. Like, so where do we start, Pat? What will be the first fundamental step to, we'll say, becoming more mindful so we can get places in life?
Oh God, there's a million different ways of looking at things. One of the things that I've done in previous seminars, which I think is still quite powerful, is it's kind of 3-step process. So number one is acknowledging all the things you've done so far in your life, your accomplishments, things you're proud of, things you enjoyed, things you would have on your highlight reel, I suppose, in the different areas. So health, relationships, career, your education, your adventures, anything you're proud of, just making a list of those things. So it's kind of important that first we acknowledge all that we've done thus far. The second thing I do, which is kind of it's an awareness task, again, to figure out, are we climbing the right mountain, is to look back on that list and ask yourself the question, which of those things did I do for myself and which were for external validation? So in other words, if I've got on my list that I became a doctor, but I never wanted to be a doctor, then I'm going to say, well, that was for external validation, for my parents to tell me I was good enough, or for society to tell me I was good enough. And again, this is just bringing awareness to what were the times that maybe I climbed the wrong mountain, I didn't feel fulfilled in something I did. But equally, you're going to have things there that maybe nobody saw. You climbed a mountain that nobody saw, and you felt so happy and so fulfilled. And that gives you a kind of true inclination of what matters to you. Yeah. So those are the first 2 steps. And then the third step I would get people to do is kind of write down their 10 definitions of success. So, if we don't consciously think about what we're trying to create, it's very hard to get there, and we fall into other people's definitions. So the conventional thought of success is that it means lots of money in the bank, an attractive spouse, a happy family that never fight, a amazing job, thousands of likes on Facebook, all this kind of stuff, which is never going to be true, but it'll become our truth unless we examine what we actually think is right. So I would say 10 definitions of success. And to me, it was stuff like, I've got a job that lets me travel, I've got great relationships with the people around me, I'm honest with the people around me, and we've evolving relationships. There's ups and downs, but we work through things. And it was just getting real with what meant, what was success to me. Because even 2 years ago, I was doing lots of things in business that was for other people to tell me I was good enough. It was for me to feel like I was, I thought I had to act a certain way, be a certain way. And that was even with the amount of knowledge I had on goal setting. I was chasing, and oftentimes doing a lot of things but not feeling fulfilled. So then that 3-step process kind of helps. So what have I done thus far? Which of those things were actually for me, and which were to make me feel good enough to the world, which is never going to fulfill us? And then also, where am I trying to go going forward? I think that's a good starting point.
Okay, brilliant. So it's kind of bringing to the forefront of acknowledging things first and just becoming a bit more aware of, right, what is going to make me feel fulfilled. Like, and I know for myself, it's hard to start that, like, and hard to get started. in any way, like, because I do something similar as well, like a very, very small task. I know it's a lot different probably, but you've heard of the Wheel of Life before, Pat, have you?
Yeah, of course.
The Wheel of Life it's for me, that was a big eye opener. I did it a few years back, and what it done was, it's kind of like you just said, acknowledgement of relationships, family, friends, money, all that kind of stuff. And what the Wheel of Life does is it gets you to rate those areas, and it makes you more aware of, I need to work on this area a bit more. Do you know, that's what I found it did for me, and that's how I kind of got a bit direction in that then. But the funny thing was, I didn't do that until after I'd started Doc Fitness, and I only kind of looked back and realised that being in college, working to be a secondary level woodworking, design, communication, graphics teacher was not something I wanted to do, because I love making stuff with my hands and whatnot, and that was more of a hobby. But it's only when I look back now, the fulfillment that came from Doc Fitness, and it's absolutely crazy. Like, so I can understand where people might be confused of where to start, but you have 3 savage points there of just acknowledging what you've already done, becoming the awareness task, and then defining your 10 definitions of success.
Something just to touch on with the awareness idea is it might seem like a bit of a hippie word to people, or they mightn't be fully conscious. The way I look at awareness is kind of we're in the dark certain times in different areas, and awareness is just shining light onto something. So sometimes it's easier not to shine light on than it is to shine light. So as an example, if you're in a job that you don't like, you mightn't like it, but sometimes it can be comfortable to stay there because it's what you know. But when we shine a light on it and you get honest and you say, right, what do I actually want from my work life? That's awareness. And the thing with awareness is that when you bring awareness to something, you've got a choice. So if I hate my current job, but I don't see any other options, I don't have a choice. I got to stay in my current job. But if I shine light and say, what are my other options and what would I like to do, it brings awareness, and then I've got a choice. I can either stay in the maybe comfortable position that I don't like, or I can take a jump. That's what awareness is. But the reason people struggle with it is that we're so busy and we're always taking on more. It's easier to take on more information. It's easier to work more hours. It's easier to be more distracted than it is to quieten your mind a little bit and actually look at what's important.
Yeah. No, because I don't know about you, but like, even I think it depends on where you grow up to and what you grow up around. Like, if you're, I think out the countryside especially, there's just such a certain way of thinking, and it's very, very easy to get caught in that trap. Like, if you come from a family that has certain beliefs and certain things, and let's just pretend that you had family A and family B. Family A grew up eating or drinking milk, whereas family B thought it was bad, so they never drank milk. That's a belief then you've instilled into your head. By the time you're 20, you don't drink milk, but you've no reasoning behind why you've done it that way. Do you know what I mean? So it's simple things like that do creep in, and I know exactly what you mean about people getting stuck in ruts and jobs and stuff, and they never shine awareness on what they actually want with it. So they keep doing it because it's easy, because they get a paycheck at the end of the week, and they fool themselves into thinking, oh, Friday's here, great, we'll go out, we'll have a few drinks, it'll all be gone, and then they're back into their loop again on Monday. I think though people are becoming more aware of that too, which is brilliant. And like you said, the whole area of mindset and mindfulness and meditation even these days is becoming massive. That's a starting point, Pat, which is brilliant. Another point then I kind of want to dive into is, it's all well and good getting started and we'll say shining light on things, and you're starting to think a bit more now about what you want. But what if you do have very, very strong limiting beliefs in your way? Like, how do I even go about breaking through those?
You got to obviously examine and look at the past, and one of the big things is figuring out where your beliefs come from. So ultimately, the main beliefs that underlie everything are that we're not good enough, or we don't have enough, or we won't be accepted, or will be judged. So that everything, people have a limiting belief that they're not good at public speaking. The belief below that is that they're fearful of being judged. So there's always something below it, and typically it's fear, like I say, fear of not being enough, having enough, being loved, or being accepted. Those are the. It always stems down to those things when you peel it back. When you shine awareness on your past and you look at your kind of story so far, you start to realize where these things come from. So again, we're never going to figure this out unless you kind of slow down and look at where you've come from. We're meaning attaching machines, which means anything that happens to us in life is just an experience, but we attach a meaning to every experience that happens. And, the meaning you attach to things is ultimately what's going to define the quality of your life. So if I'm walking through town and somebody walks past me that I know and they don't say hello to me, I'm going to attach a meaning to it, maybe that they're annoyed with me or there's something going on. Now, in reality, from an outside perspective, you could see there could be a million reasons they didn't say hello. They might have seen me, they might have their own stuff going on,
Yeah.
If you look back on your life when you're typically between 8 and 12, I would say, you start to really attach meanings to different things that happen. So maybe you're bullied as a kid, maybe you're told to be quiet, maybe you're laughed at when you read out loud in the classroom, maybe you have a bad soccer game and everyone makes fun of you. Something happens and you attach a meaning to it, and then throughout your teen years and your early 20s and so on, for as long as you live, probably, you start to look for evidence that that's true. So as an example, if you're bullied as a kid and someone tells you you're ugly, everything that happens to you for the next 20, 30, 40 years, unless you kind of examine where that belief came from, starts to feed into this, because we want to be right. So I start saying, oh, well, no one's ever asked me out, so maybe I am ugly. And oh, this person's looking at me funny, so maybe I am ugly. You start to just build this story and build it and build it and build it. So our beliefs are built on stories from our past that have been told again and again and again and again. So one of the ways that we can obviously look at that is to slow down, really trace it back. Okay, where do my beliefs about money come from? Where do what were the first things I heard in the household? Did I hear money doesn't grow on trees? Did I hear about how scarce money was? And how did that affect me growing up? That's one of the ways I think we can tackle our beliefs. Another way, I'm not fully sure of Katie Byron, like how she does it, but it's the work is something along the lines of, is the story I'm telling myself true? Am I sure it's true? And what's the evidence it's not true? I think it's something like that. You're more familiar with her stuff, I think, but that's part of the process, I think.
Yeah, and another, I think, a belief is it's simple, really. It's something that you deem to be true, and you find evidence to back it up. And as you've already kind of said, with using the example of if you're bullied in school and you're called ugly or whatever, it's going to back up that belief, but it's also going to creep into so much other areas as well. And I see it daily in terms of when someone joins a gym, like the first thing they think is, I can't do this, or I'm not able to do X, Y, or Z, because they're looking at somebody in the room that's probably there a year before them, and they're lifting X weight, or they're pushing harder, etc. But they have these beliefs instead that they can't do something like it. And it's not only that for that one little thing. I always question then the fact of, where else in your life are you saying that to yourself? It's like when I look back, simple things like even when I kind of went out of hurling for a couple of years, when I was kind of going back into it again, I had this kind of inkling in the back of my mind. Like I used to be touch and go with making the full forward line, and then I was like, I'm not good enough for it anymore, my fitness is way down, I haven't hurled in 2 years. I backed it up with all these points. And then when I got a bit more aware, if you want to call it that, and just worked to myself a bit more, read a few books, and just practiced what I was teaching people, I looked at that from a whole different perspective, and I got a whole new set of evidence factors to back it up. Like, I was training in the gym, so I'm strong. I practice hurling. I'm going to get back in and get training again. And it's like setting a new belief and just backing it up with evidence then as well. And I think that's a big thing. It's the same stuff you just talked about, but it's just, I'm talking about it, I suppose, in a different viewpoint. So,
and maybe another kind of off tangent, but I think it works. Obviously, different people respond in different ways to kind of visuals or ideas. There's this idea of love and fear, that everything we do comes from a place of love or a place of fear. Those are the only two emotions when you boil them all down. So me being afraid to look silly is obviously fear. Me creating something and putting it out there is love. So you can't be in both at the same time. You've got to pick, you're either in love or you're in fear. When you choose to live out of the story or the belief that you've got, it's coming from a place of fear. When you try to create something that you're moving towards, it's coming from a place of love. So the more we can create the life that we want, the less time we have to spend in the fearful place where we're scared. And it starts with baby steps and it just grows over time. So another analogy, up on the diving board, I've got the beliefs about everything that's going on in the water. When I jump, I'm going to, limit all those beliefs, throw them out the window. But the longer I stay on the diving board, the more beliefs are going to show up, the more stories are going to show up to back up the belief. So the analogy in life is jump and everything's going to be okay. Yeah. The longer you wait, the harder things get. And sometimes, jump might be a bit of a stretch, because sometimes it's taking the first step and just learning to stay consistent. But I find the biggest thing that scares people is the waiting and the time that they spend living in other people's lives. The more time you spend creating the stuff that you want, that's coming from a place of love, it's coming from a place of conscious creation, and it's keeping you out of the place of fear.
Isn't it mad though? Like, how quick people can make a simple decision and change things overnight. Like, in a way, do you know, like a mental clarity, if you like. I'm sure people leave your seminars and after reading your books and stuff, they're like, oh my god, just a whole new area has awoken in their brain, and they know they can actually do something now, so they'll go away and they do it and they start working towards it. I think it's powerful stuff. Like, it's unreal because you can add it to any aspect. Like, and I'm massive on adding that to my training, my performance, etc., to growing Doc Fitness, and I try to show people, like, we've had numerous guys, Pat, in here as well, that we might go for chats over breakfast some mornings of the week. When the end of the training week, we might have coffee during the week, just randomly if they're hanging around after a session. And you wouldn't believe the amount of people, I'd say it's over 20 or so people now that I've talked to, that just put small little, like, not even opinions, but just give them a bit of direction what they could do with their jobs. And those people have, over time, took on board what I said, set the goals with the health and fitness stuff, which kind of made them believe that they could either change their jobs or make it better, and they have, and they've gone away and changed it. And the difference you see them now in terms of how happy they are when they come into the gym, it's fucking mad, to say the least. You know, you can see that difference in them every single day now, simply because they get out of the thinking that they have to stay in this job because they're getting a paycheck, and they can go for more if they want it. So yeah. Sorry if that was a bit of a rant or a tangent.
No.
Okay, I think, yeah, we're going on track. We've got a why. We've got where do we start. We've talked a bit about limiting beliefs, because I just want to make people more aware of the limiting beliefs too, and what actually a limiting belief is. Again, if people think of it like a screen that's over them, and once they get rid of that screen, you know, they can move forward. Like, and
yeah, if you think if we walk into a room with a friend of mine that you've never met before, and I tell you he's an angry guy, you're going to look for all the evidence that he's angry, and everything he say, you're going to judge the way he looks, you're going to judge everything. That's the whole thing of, you know, like I was saying earlier with the law of attraction, you buy the new pair of shoes, they start showing up everywhere. So, like you say, you're going to see the world through the lens of your beliefs. But those beliefs are just a lens, and you can change the lens. It just takes time, and it just takes courage, I suppose, to a certain degree. But one thing I've learned is that you got to put the struggle into your life, otherwise life will put the struggle into your life. Yes. So we climbed Kilimanjaro last week. It was, you know, there was tough days in it. It was a big challenge for a lot of the clients that went and did it. But I was explaining to them that the fact that you've come and you've done this, and you're climbing for 12 hours on summit night, you've chosen this struggle. So now when you go back to the real world, the struggles that life throws at you are going to be a lot easier. But the people that try to avoid struggle all their life, try to avoid being uncomfortable, try to avoid looking at where they're struggling, life is going to give you struggle one way or another. So you're better off examining your life and bringing the discomfort in yourself in order to be comfortable in the future.
It's kind of like adapt or die, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Like training, like anything. I mean, if you don't look after your body in the short term, by struggling or suffering to a certain degree in the short term, then life's going to give you a life of, illness probably.
Yeah. No, I get you. And then I think, right, we've talked about mindset, beliefs, awareness, and figuring out what we want to do with things. And again, just for anyone who's listening in, like, this could be, might be thinking this now for your job, it could be a business idea you've been sitting on, or it could be simply believing yourself that you can get a six-pack, you can get to a certain level of strength. For the ladies, it could be to get into that bikini that you think you're never going to happen. But then I think it's all well and good believing that and breaking through those barriers, but now comes the side of actually setting the specific goal to get there. And a goal, I'd say to people, all a goal is a bit of focus to get what you want, and we reverse engineer it. We pick where we want, we figure out certain points, and the way I tell people to focus on it is we pick the goal, right? And if it's a body composition goal, it's very, very easy. We talk as if we've already achieved that goal. So like you've already been talking about, Pat, with the reticular activating system, I tell people again, all that is focusing on what you want. That's why when you see your friend buy a Ford Focus, you see Ford Focuses popping up everywhere or whatever it is. And when you put a goal into your head, it starts kind of coming into your focus a lot more. And we'll get to kind of daily habits and routines in a minute. But right, how does Pat set goals? How does he reverse engineer a goal?
I suppose one of the things I've learned is that we got to find the balance. Some people, the issue with setting the goal, obviously specifics are important. Having a deadline on it is important. All this kind of stuff is important. Yeah. And I still believe that. But one of the things I have learned is that sometimes when we're too focused on something specific, we close ourselves off to lots of other things that can be happening. So you'll see people that set a specific goal. The issue lies in oftentimes when they've got a goal of, say, over 12 weeks, I want to lose X amount of weight. You've got some people that will be miserable for 12 weeks thinking that when they reach this goal, they're going to be happy. So one thing I would say, might be a little bit off topic, but again, think of climbing a mountain. It's all well and good getting to the top of Everest, but there's no point being miserable for the 6 weeks it takes to get there, the 12 weeks it takes to get there. There's no point putting your head down and just gritting it out. The way you want to climb Everest, if you're going to climb Everest, is to speak to the locals, it's to have fun, it's to smile, it's to take in the views, enjoy the journey, take every day as a blessing. And that's the same analogy for if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to start a new business, if you're trying to whatever. If you don't learn to enjoy the process, the goal is never going to be fulfilling, because it's not about the top of the mountain, it's about the journey to getting there and the person you become. And you see that in like successful people that become millionaires, lose it all, they get it back fairly quick because of the person they've become. So again, it's not about the goal, it's about the person you become along the way and the feelings that you can kind of bring into your life. In terms of setting specifics, again, I just look at, for me at this point, it's kind of what's going to stretch me, what's going to force me to challenge my current beliefs, and what's going to force me to, grow in the areas where maybe I'm not that strong. And then, once I figure that out, I'll set my specific financial goal or my specific training goal. Yeah. And then, like you say, reverse engineer, which is just the kind of case of, okay, if I want to make $1 million in a year, what would I need to make in a month? What would I need to make in a week? What would I need to make in a day? And then you start looking at your day-to-day tasks. So it's really just take the big goal, figure out how you can make it, how you break that down into meaningful chunks. Then what does it look like day to day? And then you make it as manageable as possible for you. You don't try to change everything overnight. You take small steps every day. One of my big things is just take 3 big action steps a day. That's 1,000 action steps in a year. That changes your life. So I don't know if I've gone off topic there, but that would be kind of my approach is what do I want in the different areas? Mm-hmm. What's my deadline? What's my daily action steps? And then just learning to enjoy the process and not be too focused on, keep the end goal as a focus, but realize that the magic really is in the day to day. It's not in the final achievement of the goal.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's something as well that I've actually brought back into fray for our own coaches here in terms of how we train, because I think we're so focused on training everyone else, we completely forgot about our own training and our own progression in the gym too. So I wanted to create the atmosphere where we try and meet up a few times a week to train together and just enjoy that session and be present in it and have a bit of fun and not be so rigid with things and you're dead right, Pat. It's all it's if you can't be present in the here and now, what is the point? You could be dead tomorrow. That's what you mean by that, I think, as well, and enjoying the journey. But what I kind of was getting at with the goals, I completely understand what you mean by not getting too focused on one specific thing, because the way that I try and bring things across too, and you've already said it, but I'd set a body goal. So a body goal for me or for our guys is how I want to look, feel and perform, and then a performance goal will be it could be lifting a certain weight, it could be sport, it could be X, Y or Z. So now you've 2 goals within that subcategory of a body goal. We do a business goal, which is called, it doesn't mean you have to own your own business. It means what you want from either financial, job, income, that kind of stuff. And then we actually set another goal, an overall bracket goal, and we coin it balance. And what I actually mean by balance is we try and incorporate things like family, friends, relationships, and balance for yourself. So have you read a book in the last year on, even not even to do with personal development or anything like that, but have you even read a book on fiction stuff? Just to kind of have it in the back of your mind that you are progressing yourself on a daily basis, and that's what we mean by balance. And as you said a bigger term picture. So let's just say if somebody set a year goal and they work back from that, then they set it in for the next let's say 12 to 16 weeks. They broke it down to their weekly, and then they broke it down to a daily task. That's exactly what we do. It's what you've already said. So it's seeing the bigger picture, breaking it down, and then break it down to daily tasks. And it is very, very simple when you do that.
Yeah, and another way of thinking about, I suppose, goal setting is something I've done this year. My kind of theme for the year, it's interesting to have a theme. It's something I've just kind of come across is is your theme leveling up or turning pro or, being the friendliest person, whatever your theme is. My theme for this year is be in the dance. So the kind of idea that, have the goals, but learn to trust the process and enjoy the process. Cause I've done, for enough years, I've chased things and I've tried to do things too quick, and I've done it for the sake of getting it done, and I've been too focused on the outcome. And again, that analogy, I've been too focused on getting to the summit of the mountain. This year for me is all about enjoying the day to day. So one of the ways that I make that a practical thing is I've got my outcome goals. So my outcome goals are like a financial target, a half Ironman target, but then I've also got my process goals. So those are things that I want to do every day. So like one of my goals is 100 days of creating an hour of content every day, 100 days of meditating for half an hour a day, 100 days of journaling for half an hour a day. And that forms habits. So again, that's not trying to get anywhere. It's things that are actually implemented every single day that become, habitual, become a process.
Yeah, and I think as well, Pat, that's going to lead us directly to what I want to talk about next, because it's all well and good becoming more self-aware, and maybe let's just pretend if somebody went off to a Pat Divilly seminar and they become more aware, they break down some beliefs, they set some goals for themselves. But I think we both know the real key is taking action on this stuff every single day. So, we'll just keep a goal setting base or mindfulness or whatever, but what does a typical day look like for you then to keep on top of all this stuff and make sure that you are following through and completing your daily actions that you've set out for yourself?
For me, I focus on 4 areas now. I mean, I've done it differently in the past, but 4 areas be like body or health. So that's your nutrition and your training. My second area will be self-awareness. That's taking time for myself to either do things I enjoy or do things that make me get to know myself better, which is like journaling, meditating, taking a walk without any music and stuff like that. My third area will be relationships, so improving my relationships with people, or networking if it's business. And then my last one would be business. So body, self, relationships and business. And I've just got like something I want to do every day in those areas. So, it's as simple as how do I get a little bit better, and can I go to bed each night saying I got a little bit better on each thing. So, with body, it's a training session, either jiu-jitsu or triathlon. That's what I'm into at the moment. And it's having a green smoothie in the morning. And that's a win. The rest of the day could go pear-shaped, but at least I've done something there that moves me forward. With, my sense of self, it's, did I meditate, journal, or take time for myself today? Relationships is something that people forget about. You have to invest in your relationships, otherwise they just decline like everything else. Yeah. You can't expect a relationship. And that's something I don't know if you've experienced it. I've definitely experienced it in growing a business. Became too focused on the business, forgot about my friends and family as much as I needed them. Yeah. And I had to reassess that, and I had to start investing again, because the way I look at this with these 4 areas is they're the 4 most important areas in my life. You can figure out your own, but if I keep going to the bank and trying to take money out, there's no money in the bank. Eventually, I can get short term, I can get a loan, and that'll tie me over for a little bit. But eventually, there's going to be no money in the bank. I'm not going to be able to get anything out of it. So if I don't invest in my body and my relationships and my work and myself every day, then someday is going to come where I'm going to be sick because I'm not going to have invested in my health. I'm not going to have any friends or family, or I'm not going to have great relationships because I've never invested in those things. My business is not going to be working because I haven't invested. And suddenly all these important things are just going to become, something that I don't have. So again, a lot of people, the doctor is going to come and tell you you're sick, or your partner is going to come and end your relationship, or your business is going to fall apart and you're not going to be able to pay the tax man, or you're going to lose your job. All these things will happen because life will give you the struggle unless you bring in the bit of struggle yourself. So for me, it's a struggle sometimes to get all the things done that I want to get done day to day. But I know that I either choose to do it myself, or life's going to throw it at me in a harsher way long term. Yeah,
no, that's I love that analogy of the bank account, taking out and not giving back kind of thing. Is that what you meant by that? Like you're just constantly taking?
Yeah, exactly. Back? I mean, you got to build up a balance, and it's a nice, again, visual, or it's kind of idea for people going to the gym, is that every time you step foot in the gym, even if it's not your best workout, you're investing, you're putting money in. Every time you go on the beer, or you skip the gym, or you sit in the cat, whatever it is, you're doing the opposite. Yeah. And it balances out so that, what it's like. We've all got like super fit friends that have just trained for years, and if they chose to do a marathon tomorrow, they can do it without having done much work because they've done the work in the background. Yeah. So it's just being conscious of that. Same thing with relationships. If we're not there for our friends and family, on a consistent basis, and either, we're all busy people, but just taking the time to send an acknowledgement text or send a gift or a thank you or a check in with them or a grab lunch or a coffee. If you're not doing that on a consistent basis, then, you shouldn't expect them to hang around for long. And then the self thing is kind of, okay, if I'm any relationship in my life that is going to be strong, it needs me to spend time with the person. It needs me to get to know the person, but I want a strong relationship with myself. So again, I need that time for myself to journal or to meditate or to take time.
And Pat, during your daily routine, it's brilliant. You've outlined like your action. You go away. You actually set up tasks to do for a day, which is brilliant. And I think as well, like we're emphasizing here, like the body and the health goal. I'm the same way. Like if I know that if I try my best to train as early as I can today. Usually it ends up falling around between 1 to 3 p.m. But once I get my training in and I eat good food, that is like my massive win for the day, and I feel like everything else is nearly secondary to that. No matter how important things might seem in your head, I still get that massive like kick off. I've progressed myself today, rather than if Doc Fitness didn't move forward theoretically or whatever you want to say. But again, I think it's knowing that you're doing that little bit to push yourself forward, and you build that momentum over time. It's infectious, really. Like, and people don't feel that because they don't do it, so they don't know how much better things can be.
Yeah, and I think what happens then is people, they might get fired up by a seminar or a book or whatever it is, and they say, right, I'm going to change everything, and they make a to-do list as long as their arm, and then tomorrow they get like a couple of things done, which is all well and good, but there's a couple of things left, so they feel like a failure. So the kind of idea that we're talking about is, right, if you pick your key areas, whatever they are for you, so it could be, being a father is a key area for you, being a husband, being a wife, being a healthy person, whatever it is, and you just pick one thing that's going to move you forward, and you start to realize that it's in your daily actions that the magic is. So me sending a text to someone telling them I care about them tomorrow, it doesn't make a big difference, but doing it consistently for 30 days is very manageable, but it's going to make a consistent difference. So it's, most people will try to send 5 texts tomorrow telling people they love them, and then they'll fall off the wagon the next day. Or they'll try train for 3 hours tomorrow and they'll fall off the wagon the next day. Even if you train for 15 minutes a day for the next month, or if you did 5 pull-ups every time you pass the pull-up bar in your kitchen. I have a pull-up bar in my kitchen. But whatever it is, you just pick things so that it could be the worst day in the world, but at least you had your green smoothie, you did a couple of pull-ups, you took time for yourself, and you text someone to acknowledge them. That's a win. So it's a way of setting yourself up that every day you win. And to be on that is a bonus.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's an analogy I come back to too time and time again with a lot of things lately. It's easy to do and easy not to do. Simple stuff like. Well, Pat, one thing I did want to touch on. You were on about your 4 daily tasks. You kind of briefly brushed over the fact of journaling or meditating, and a big thing that I tell people I do it. I don't try and push it on them because I know it's deep stuff over time, and if you try to throw too much at people, they can just, as you said, get overwhelmed or whatnot. But like, what about gratitude? And that's probably within your journaling stuff. But one thing that I love is just starting the day off with three simple things I'm grateful for. Again, it just sets me up for the day, and my day becomes a lot better now that I do it. If you have somebody else to listen to this and they think that, or they hear you do that, you're like, what? You write down what? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's
yeah. But
what difference has that made, journaling, and you're starting off your day? Does it have an impact on you?
Yeah, I mean, we have that with all our online clients. They do the gratitude every day. It's again coming back to what I touched on earlier with love and fear. Love is where we're appreciative of what we have, we're creative, we feel in abundance. Fear is where we don't feel like we've enough. We feel like, and that's where most people are, is they're looking at other people on the timeline and saying, this guy's got X, Y, or Z and I don't have it, or this person's got this. And it's always kind of looking outside of ourselves for what we don't have. Gratitude is, again, going back inward and saying, I'm grateful that this, and this. And when you're appreciative of what you have, you bring more into your life. And it's something that, like, I had it on my fat loss courses for years, and people would kind of say, what's the point in this? Yeah. But there'd often be people at the end of the 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks that would say, I got a lot from the mindset stuff and I never thought I would. But you've nothing to lose by doing it. So anyone listening to this that wants to make one subtle change, write down 3 things you're grateful for every day for the next 30 days and just see what happens. And, I've even had clients that were having like relationship problems, and I've said, acknowledge your partner maybe every day for the next 6 weeks and see what happens. And suddenly the people come back and say, oh, my partner's completely changed. And it's not them that's changed, it's just your approach has changed, and you've started to see them in a different light, and you've started to see the greatness and everything else. And that can be the same in your life. If you spend your whole life looking outside of yourself for what you don't have, only more and more and more of that stuff's going to show up. If you start to look at what you do have, more and more of that's going to show up.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because I know a lot of people, it's stuff they don't talk about. It's stuff they're not comfortable talking about. They don't want to talk about it. But like for me, it's like a bullshit filter. It filters out all the shit and it brings in all the good. And that's why I love starting off my days with it. Now, saying that as well though, not every day is going to be perfect. You're going to miss some days here and there. But I think starting off a day, 3 things you're grateful for. If you set goals, review the things daily or at least every few days, to keep them on top of your mind so you're focused on them. I think that is a massive player as well for myself. But I think, Pat, if we go any further, we'll stay talking all day. There is a lot I haven't touched on, but I suppose just wrapping things up, like we've gone through where to start. We've touched on limiting beliefs. We've talked about setting big goals, maybe breaking them down into subcategories, and you're on about your 4 daily tasks. Picking one thing to move forward, the bank account analogy, the gratitude. I think a few things then that kind of are incorporated in all of this is how people look at things in perspective and just shifting their focus from the scarcity and the fixed to just an area of growth and abundance, and picking the best thing from a shitty situation. Like if you can look at, it's up to you how you look at things. Like you can look at I don't know, it could be anything. You can look at a certain situation and think it's the worst thing in the world and retreat and put up these barriers and everything, or else you can look at that, no matter how bad it is, as a chance to grow and move forward from it. Like, because every single setback that you encounter, it's not a setback, it's a learning point to move forward. And I think that is something that I constantly remind myself and constantly remind everyone. No matter what complaining thing they're doing that day, I'll say shut up and move forward from it and learn from it. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lesson in everything, and what happens most people is they refuse to take the lesson that's there, so the lesson keeps showing up, because that's what happens. You get the same experience again and again and again and again throughout your life until you learn the lesson. So someone, nasty shows up in your life that treats you in a certain way, and you don't learn something from it, they'll keep showing up again and again and again. You see people that get in the same kind of relationships repeatedly throughout their lives, or people have the same weight struggles throughout their life, or people get hangovers throughout their life, or whatever it is. Yeah. Or people that every job they go to, they feel like the victim and they feel like they're not being treated fairly by their boss. There's a lesson every time, if you choose to accept it. Because life is just, I think experiences are just sent to give us lessons. Yeah. It's all well and good reading about it in a book, but when it shows up in your life, how do you react?
How are you doing it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's people taking life too seriously as well, and not realizing at the end of the day where we all end up,
Yeah.
But no, Pat, I value your time greatly, and I'm going to round off with I was going to ask you what you think when you hear the word successful as well, but we already answered that at the start. But one thing, Pat, I want to ask you, and I'd love to hear your viewpoint on it, is just to round this off. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned since you started in Dublin and struggled to where you are now?
I think happiness comes down to growth and progress and contribution. I think my Dublin days, I wanted success, whatever I thought that was, before I put in the work, because I thought that success was going to make me happy. Coming back and starting from scratch, I learned that I enjoyed the journey from starting from scratch. And some of my happiest days were the first couple of classes and being excited and just putting everything into the people around me and just being excited to grow something. And then going on to, I suppose, doing really well financially and everything else, but feeling a bit unfulfilled because I had stopped doing what had made me happy. So oftentimes we achieve a certain level of success and then we take our foot off the pedal, or we stop doing what we used to do because we think we've got there in some way. I suppose my biggest lesson is that we're never going to be there. Life is all about the journey. It's all about growing every day. And for me, I'm happiest when I'm taking on challenges, breaking them down and just being consistent every day. As soon as I get complacent and lazy, I don't enjoy life the same way. So for me, it's just exciting to think that you're here once. You can pick whatever you want to do. You don't have to do it. No one can. We all have this fear that other people are going to laugh at us if we fail. But people are too concerned with themselves, and people are too worried about their own lives to worry about what you're doing. So I have no fear with setting a big goal and just taking the little steps every day. And if I don't get there, which oftentimes I won't get where I want to be, it's all well and good, because I've learned more than I ever would have learned if I'd stayed still.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the truth, Pat. Like no one actually does care what you're doing anyway. Like so, it's not you specifically, but yourself.
Yeah.
But Pat, your 2 latest books, I think Upgrade Your Life is one that I haven't seen yet. I'm not going to pretend I have. But what can people get from Upgrade Your Life? Because I think this is directly related to the podcast, this episode.
Yeah, to me, I just wanted that to be a kind of practical introductory book on the self-help side of things. I've read these books since I was kind of 12 or 13. I first started reading Tony Robbins and Napoleon Hill, and I've gone through hundreds of those books. I've obviously done the journaling stuff myself, kind of taking it within and figuring out what I make of it all. I just wanted it to be practical, so it's a very easy to read book. It's got a success journal in there so people can track their daily steps. Goes through the different steps, so figuring out what your why, figuring out exactly what you want, breaking it down, finding coaches and mentors, taking daily action steps, and it's just a workbook throughout. So I kind of say in the first chapter, I don't want this to be a book that just goes on the bookshelf and provides entertainment. I want it to be a workbook that actually gives you a kick. And there's been great kind of feedback off it. There's just random things you'd never expect. I had a guy messaged me the other day that his daily action step was his wife had passed away a year ago, and he didn't want to clear her stuff out of the house because it was just something holding him back from doing it. But he told me he had cleared a lot of her stuff out of the house, and it had given him great closure and allowed him to move forward toward new things. So just things you wouldn't expect. Yeah. But the secret in life is just taking action and moving. Don't stand still.
Brilliant. And Pat, I know lately as well not lately, but you're doing a lot of seminars now as well. Are the seminars directly in relation to the book as well? For clarity, confidence, and just connection?
Yeah, same kind of idea. So there's 2 main workshops I'm doing at the moment. There's the Clarity Workshop, which is a day-long introductory for people that they can come and again, figure out what matters to you, what are your fears around that, how can you overcome the fears and then move forward. Then I'm also doing a 3-day workshop, which is called Camp Reconnect, and that's very much about reconnecting people with maybe the person that got lost along the way. I know for me, again, I became solely focused on my business, and that was how I saw myself. But there's so much more to me than my business. I've got different skills, different talents, different things that the world doesn't see, but that I love, like music and art and stuff like that. So it's about kind of reconnecting people with what are the things maybe you've lost over the years, and that's been a fun one as well. So
yeah, brilliant. I think as well that comes back to the very, very thing I mentioned at the start too, the wheel of life. Yeah, when you grow up, you take things so seriously. You only focus on X, Y, or Z, and you forget about things that you actually enjoy doing, like fun things, or I don't know, bungee jumps, etc. Pat, that is absolutely brilliant. I'm going to put all those links anyway for you in the show notes for the episode. But Pat, I just want to say a massive thank you for coming on, and I hope people get a lot from this, because we've gone through a metric ton of stuff there. There's a lot of analogies to take away from that too. But thank you, buddy. It was great having you on.
Deadly. Thank you, man.
So guys, that was Pat Divilly, and as you can tell, that's probably an episode where you have to go over once or twice to really see the nuggets and takeaways from that, because there's a lot of like analogies and lessons there that sometimes they only sink in like the more you go over them. But basically all those kind of resources we mentioned, like the Wheel of Life, Byron Katie, Pat's book, seminars, all that kind of stuff, they will all be on the show notes page of docfitnessonline/podcast. And in the meantime, next week we have Danny Lennon coming on the podcast, which he's going to talk everything about setting up a fat loss diet, which I cannot wait for, because it's going to be all laying out the principles of what you need to know and just cutting through to the straight facts and science of what it means to lose body fat and tone up, if you like. So guys, thanks a million for tuning in, and hopefully we will see you back here next week, and enjoy. Bye bye.